The Japanese war machine was moving swiftly forward, conquering Guam, Hong Kong, Wake Island, Malaya, and Singapore. Faced with a high casualty rate and the inability to break the use of air defense in Bataan, General Homa decided to pull back and await reinforcements. There now ensued a lull in the fighting that would last 45 days. Unable to win with their guns, the Japanese resorted to propaganda to break the spirit of the Filipinos and turn them against the Americans.
They dropped leaflets about women, so forth, making us think of our families. They thought of this as entertainment.
But the morale of the Bataan defenders remained high. The defenders were motivated to fight harder when they learned the story of Erlinda, a young Filipina who had been raped and killed by the Japanese. "Remember Erlinda" became the cry of defiance. USAFAIR headquarters tried to boost morale further through steering broadcasts from the Voice of Freedom in Corregidor.
Lieutenant Norman Reyes sa English portion. Tagalog portion naman si Lieutenant Francisco Isidoro. Talagang mataas ang moral namin. Lalo nung marinig namin na a mile-long convoy is on the way.
The propaganda then was that President Roosevelt is sending a long convoy of reinforcements. So just keep on holding, Bataan. Keep on holding.
But there was no convoy coming. Little did the Filipino-American soldiers know that the United States government had reached a decision that virtually made them sacrificial pawns. After Pearl Harbor, the U.S. would pour its remaining resources to helping the Allies win the war in Europe first, before making its move in the Pacific. To make matters worse, food and medicine were in short supply.
We were eating iguana, we were eating snakes, and I must tell you that once we got back into Bataan, the Philippine scouts did not need their horses anymore, and we started to eat horses.
Lugaw. And then later on, some kamote with lugaw. And then later on, kangkong with lugaw.
50% casualties, and the Philippine Army was just sitting in their foxhole with malaria.
We had to put up a cemetery nearby. We buried them ourselves.
President Quezon, growing frustrated over American inaction, proposed that the Philippines be immediately declared independent and neutral. Then he would order the American and Japanese armed forces out of the country. When U.S. President Roosevelt disapproved, Quezon sarcastically remarked, "How typically American to anguish over the fate of a distant cousin, while a daughter is being raped in the back room." But with the Philippines isolated, it was no longer safe to keep President Quezon and General MacArthur in the country. Quezon was evacuated by submarine, while MacArthur left Corregidor by PT boat en route to Australia. Just before leaving, MacArthur promised to return.
Tonight, I repeat those words. I shall return.
In the meantime, he called on General Jonathan Wainwright to take over the command. Major General Edward King was named commander of the Bataan forces. The Filipino and American forces were nearing the breaking point. But the stubborn defense of Bataan and Corregidor had put the Philippines on the world map and gained recognition for the Filipino soldier. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill praised the Filipino soldier as the best warrior in the world, and U.S. President Roosevelt saluted the Filipinos for upholding the most magnificent traditions of free democracy.
I say that again and again.
At this point, however, the troops needed more than a morale boost. They needed food, ammunition, and air support. This never came. By contrast, the Japanese had reinforcements on the way and were determined to crush the defenders of Bataan. As April 1942 began, the USAFET troops, weakened by hunger and disease, were still holding on.
People could still laugh and joke. It seemed that mostly people were accepted their fate.
With fresh troops, the Japanese launched their final offensive on April 3, Good Friday. Their first goal was to capture Mount Samat. From this central high ground, the Japanese could see and split the USAFE lines, making isolated Phil-American forces easy prey.
They kept on bombing. We thought that we will die.
The defenders were physically weak and weary, but they put up a fierce fight against the revitalized enemy.
That even if they were in the factions, they were firing their arms just to show that they wanted to fight, but
The Japanese opened with a fierce artillery barrage on both the front lines and the rear positions. Bombers attacked anything that moved, burning forest cover in the dry summer heat.
So we never thought that we could ever get out of that place anymore.
With Mount Samat in their hands, the Japanese pressed on, giving their adversary no chance to regroup. Filipino and American forces planned temporary defense lines but were pushed back. The U.S. 31st Infantry Regiment and units of the Philippine Scouts tried to mount a counterattack but were repulsed. Eventually, the front lines collapsed in the face of the relentless assault.
Yung malalaking bato doon sa babaw ng Mount Samat, hinuhukay namin sa lalim na yung ganun para ikuha namin sa mga punugay. Wala namin